Hi, everyone. We will get started in just another moment. We're giving everyone an opportunity to get logged on. Thank you so much for joining us tonight, and we look forward to this great conversation. We will get started in just another minute. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to tonight's tonight's event, 21st Century and Beyond African Americans and African American Social Workers. What do we need to know and do to ensure a successful future? Hosted by the USC Suzanne Dworak-Peck School of Social Work, Office of Admissions, Alumni, and Career Services. My name is Amanda Decker, and I am the Senior Development Officer for Constituent Relations and Advancement Operations, basically alumni relations and professional development. And this evening, I am joined by an amazing panel of USC Suzanne Dworak-Peck School of Social Work faculty, students, and alumni. This hour, we will hear the African American perspective about community concerns in our current climate. If you have any technical difficulties, use the chat feature and we'll help troubleshoot. If you have any questions for our panelists throughout the conversation, use the Q&A feature and we will be sure to get to as many questions as we can at the end. Before we have Dr. Wiley, our moderator, introduce our panel, we have a special announcement from my colleague, Assistant Director of Admissions, Ron Rubalcaba. Ron?
Thank you, Amanda. Good evening, everyone. My name is Ron Rubalcaba, and I'm the Assistant Director of Admissions here at the USC Suzanne Dworak-Peck School of Social Work for the on-campus program. I wanted to take a few minutes just to talk about some of the programs that we do offer here at the School of Social Work. Now, for our undergraduate students, we do offer a social work and juvenile justice minor. This minor is designed for students who want to increase their knowledge of the juvenile justice system and the many service environments for diverse youth populations. Now, this minor is fit for students in the behavioral and the social sciences, or any student interested in developing a broad knowledge of issues in the field of juvenile justice. It is of particular interest to students wishing to pursue graduate studies in social work, as well as law, sociology, psychology, public health, or education. Now, there are 4 required courses for this minor: institutional inequality in American political and social policy, juvenile justice in America, adolescent gang intervention, and community experience in juvenile justice environments. Now, in addition to that, we do offer a progressive MSW program. Now, this is, again, designed specifically for USC undergraduate students, and it allows students to earn both their undergraduate and a master's in social work in as few as 5 years. So undergraduate students who have completed or are in the process of completing the juvenile justice minor, they're highly encouraged to apply. These applicants who have completed the juvenile justice minor will complete less than the 60 units normally required for our traditional MSW students. Now, we also welcome applications from all other undergraduate students here at USC. Again, you're going to complete less than the required 60 units for the MSW. So it'll definitely save you time, it'll save you money. Now, in addition to those 2 programs, we offer the Master's in Social Work in a number of formats to meet your needs. So for those students who have a bachelor's degree in social work, we do offer a 37-unit, 1-year advanced standing MSW. That starts in the summer of 2021. There still is time to apply, so if you're interested, you definitely want to reach out to me as soon as possible. I'll provide you with my email shortly. In addition to that, for fall applicants, we have our traditional 60-unit MSW program. Now, we offer that in a 2-year option. We offer that in a 3-year option. Of course, there's fall and spring courses only in that particular program. each student will complete 1,000 hours at two community-based internships. In addition to that program, I'm excited about this Working Professionals MSW program that starts in the fall. This is a hybrid program. It's a 7 consecutive semester, 28 months. It'll offer courses both online and on campus, guaranteed evening courses that'll provide you with a consistent schedule for those that have work commitments. Like I mentioned, it is a hybrid program. You will still complete 1,000 hours of internship, including both virtual training as well as a community-based internship that USC will provide. It will help you find that internship. Now, in addition to those programs, we offer a number of dual degrees with the School of Law, Business, Gerontology, Public Health, Public Planning, Public Administration, and Nonprofit Management. So if you're ready to learn more about social work and really how you can inspire, empower, and advocate for marginalized populations, then I would encourage you to reach out to us. And you can get a hold of me at applymsw@usc.edu. Again, that email address is applymsw@usc.edu. And I will drop that in the chat box. Or you can visit our website for more information and contact information. So now I would like to introduce Dr. June Wiley, clinical faculty, and tonight's moderator. Thank you.
Thank you, Ron. Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm June Wiley, and I'm clinical associate faculty. I'm affiliated with the Social Change and Innovation Department. I also teach in the MSW program, as well as our doctorate in social work, the DSW. This event tonight is extremely important, and I hope you find it to be very meaningful. It coincides with Black History Month, and it gives you an opportunity to hear from our students, current students, and alumni about what we should be concerned about as members of the profession, as Black social workers, looking to what are some of the issues that we will confront in the future. So what I'm going to do right now is to inform you a little bit, give you the names of our panelists who will be responding to the questions, and give them an opportunity to further introduce themselves. So this evening on the panel, we have Ms. Brittany Dennis, we have Mr. Karl Golden, we also have Mr. Marcus Owen and Megan Castillo. And so I'm going to turn it over to them to provide them an opportunity to further introduce themselves. From there, we'll move into the questions. Okay, Brittany?
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for allowing for me to be here, Dr. Wiley. I really appreciate this opportunity. So yeah, my name is Brittany Dennis. I'm alumni from the MSW program in 2012. I'm currently a licensed clinical social worker. I supervise a women's reentry forensic program with the Los Angeles County Department of Mental Health. So my experience is working with mentally ill, forensically involved, and impacted communities.
Karl?
Good evening, everyone. My name is Karl Golden. I'm also an alumni of the School of Social Work program 2007. Currently, I'm a licensed clinical social worker. I'm a senior clinical supervisor at Children's Institute, where I'm supervised master's level interns placed at our agency through our clinical internships program.
Marcus?
Hey, good evening, everybody. My name is Marcus Owens. I'm a second year MSW student. I'm also in the Sky Department, Social Change and Innovation. Also, I'm co-chair of the Black Social Work Caucus.
Megan?
Good evening, everyone. My name is Megan Castillo. I am a second year social change and innovation student. I am also a co-chair of the USC Black Social Work Caucus, and excited to be here.
Thank you all. So at this point now, what we're going to do is, in a round table format, have each of you respond to the 3 questions that I'll pose to you. So the first question being, and this is all focused on looking at the future in terms of social workers, Black social workers, the social work community in general, society at large. From your perspective, what do you anticipate will be significant changes in the future that will positively or negatively impact the African American community and other communities of color and the larger society that MSW students and professionals need to be aware? How about if we start with you, Brittany? And then we'll go around, each person will have a.
What I believe right now, the political climate that we're in is specific to social injustice, and also a lot of focusing on police brutality, specifically regarding African American and Latinx communities. And I think that is a conversation piece that is going to continue and needs to continue in the future, especially when it comes to how Black people interact with law enforcement. As clinicians, future change agents, it's very important for us to be mindful of the interactions that our Black community has with law enforcement, and to encourage the people that we interact with and provide services to motivate them to work through some of the traumas that they experience at the hands of law enforcement, and even assist them with identifying ways to be more resilient and prepare for hopefully hopefully for us to rectify within the country how law enforcement and police brutality has impacted us.
Thank you. Karl?
Yes, I definitely agree with Brittany. And I was just thinking that as social workers in our profession, specifically with that topic, being part of the planning and implementation of policies and programs, being a part of that to help address those issues, I think that that's going to be very important moving forward as we go through and identify ways to help address those issues. And as social workers, I think that we could bring a lot to that planning process and implementation process of those programs to help address those issues.
Thank you. Mark?
Mm-hmm.
I agree with everything that was said before. I also think that and it's already started, but having an intersectional lens on how all this applies, and how different identities deal with different things all at the same time, right? So how that all looks for one person may be different for somebody else. And I think it's a good thing, because we're talking about the long game, being able to be as inclusive with our policies as possible. But at the same time, I feel like it's going to be a bad thing too, because there's always going to be backlash in that. So we're talking about the long game, the long game, but it's necessary, because that's where you grow.
Thank you, Marcus. Megan?
In thinking about both the positive and negative, I echo the sentiments of my colleagues on the panel. We're currently in a climate where we're talking about Black lives and centering Black lives, and really interrogating what support for Black lives actually looks like. And as it's specific to social work and law enforcement, I think it's important that as we move forward and as we progress, we begin to interrogate social work's relation to law enforcement, particularly because we've seen how it has adversely impacted the Black community. And so I think that's something that we could, begin to think about as we move forward, but also thinking about the current pandemic and recognizing that Black people have been disproportionately impacted by the pandemic, and how are we as social workers going to respond to the trauma and the lack of resources thereof. And also recognizing that it's not by accident, but it's also a trickle down effect of just how adversely and disproportionately Black people are impacted in just about every aspect of their lives. It's not by accident that when a pandemic hits, that only becomes exacerbated. So just thinking about those things and what role social workers can play in remedy and rectifying and really coming up with solutions to address those issues.
Thank you, Megan. Really highlighting the problems and specifically the social determinants of health. So thanks for that added piece. Really good. Let's move on to the second question. With the ever increasing reliance on technology, which has many implications, what are some strategies that African American MSW students and alumni can employ to develop and/or enhance our technology awareness and skills to better assist us as students and professionals? So starting, why don't we switch it up a little bit and start with Karl. Karl, what's your thoughts about that in terms of looking at technology? What do
Yeah,
we
yeah, especially one of the things with the pandemic we've seen, and even with my supervisees, the difficulties that in the African American community and minority community, difficulties with the internet, access to internet, and students having to transfer to attending school, so they're missing out on a lot. So a lot of our interaction with families is helping to support them and helping them to obtain those resources that are needed. One, not only to participate in services with us at our agency, but also to enable them to participate in school services, because we find that a lot of students are behind now in school, or just don't have the access that a lot of other students have in being able to complete their schoolwork on a daily basis. So I think that's one of the things that is real important to help families access those resources, technology resources that's going to help them to maintain their education and day-to-day life skills as well.
Thank you. Brittany?
I totally agree with Karl. I have seen how within our communities, that lack of access to technology has really been an issue and a burden for not just students, grade level students, but also, parents who are trying to provide and ensure their students and their children remain connected. So as change agents, being mindful of that, and then also being empathetic to the communities that we provide the services to, and also trying to find alternatives to assist them. Because sometimes I've identified with the staff I supervise, some of their clients do not necessarily lend well to technology, because it's the face-to-face, the contact that brings more connection. And so finding ways to bridge the gap between technology and also ensuring that the face-to-face contact is still available for them is a way to ensure that we are more mindful and develop and enhance the relationships we have with others.
Thank you. Marcus?
Yeah, I have to just echo everybody else. It's all about like access, because like even thinking about like being in school right now for this pandemic, thankfully USC was giving out laptops for rent and hotspots for rent, and like that's amazing. But it's only amazing because somebody told me about it so I could get it, And if I hadn't got it, like you know maybe I wouldn't have the internet to be able to even be on this panel right now. So it's like knowing what we have available, how do we get all this information to the people who need it the most? And then yeah, also Zoom fatigue is so real. I'm really, really tired of being on my laptop every single day, but like we have to do what we have to do to be safe. So being creative about how we can engage with people. Because if we're gonna be on here, if we're gonna be on this platform for almost everything, we just have to find ways to make it more engaging, make it fun, because it's just hard, it's just hard to do this. So access and engagement is the biggest thing for me.
Thank you, Marcus. Megan?
I echo the sentiments of my colleagues. I think it has everything to do with access and engagement, but also recognizing, you know, the points of entry, right? So as social workers, always thinking about when um, the teachers are often the first to report or to really have that insight as to what's going on in the home. And so now recognizing that there's going to be a barrier to that that possibility and really supporting our families in the ways that they need to with this technology. But then how do we balance that with this concern of surveillance, right? So how do we maintain the integrity of our privacy as individuals? I think that's going to be something that we have to discuss always moving forward, but absolutely thinking about first safety, but then also thinking about access, right? Who's not at the table, who doesn't have access, and then what does that look like when we're thinking about the environment that which, the families that we work with are in.
Thank you, excellent. As a brief follow-up, with our skills as social workers, knowing how to work very collaboratively with other groups, do you feel that this is an opportunity that we can seek or engage with other professionals, Black professionals and people, other organizations and individuals who are allies in terms of looking at our technology needs, our needs for technology knowledge in our community? So for example, the Black Engineers, Society of Black Engineers. What do you think? Just quickly, since this is a quick follow-up. Is it an opportunity to engage with Black engineers, with computer professionals?
Yeah, just a quick point. I think that having the opportunity to find and see the lack of resources can give us a better perspective on where we need to reach out for those resources and make those relationships to be able to be in a better place to have things in place if something like this happens again, so we can be prepared, and also we can implement this in our communities and help those students who lack the resources now, so that they'll already have them as well, moving forward.
Thank you. Anyone else like to respond to it before we move on?
Yeah, I can. I think that allows for individuals within different professions and disciplines to come together and utilize the resources within one another. You mentioned Black engineers. I would have not considered the fact that, we could utilize their skill sets as social workers, and inadvertently they can utilize our services as well interchangeably to provide, a wealth of resources to the community, because we can pull from their knowledge to get students or just the community access in addition to us being able to provide the mental health, the social support, and they can use those skill sets as well. Mm-hmm.
Excellent, really very good. Anyone else, Megan or Marcus, on that last point?
Yeah, I think it's yes, it's always an opportunity to collaborate, and especially because it's like we have to, because I don't know about you all, but it just seems like any type of relief from this pandemic has been slow moving, just really, really slow moving. And it feels like the people who need it the most aren't getting what they need in the time that they need it. So I hate to say it, but it always feels like we have to just like do it for ourselves and look out for ourselves and look out for each other in that, So if that means that we have to like collaborate with like Black engineers to make sure that like people have like access to technology so they can like go to school, go to work, what have you, definitely. Yes, because no one else is going to do it for us. It seems like it. So.
And it becomes a win-win situation when you think about it, because again, as social workers, one of our skill sets that distinguishes us from other professions is our ability to look at the individual, the community, and the policies, and our ability to collaborate with different groups because of our skills. So thanks very much. I think it is something that will be imperative in terms of being able to look at how we can build these alliances. And as a matter of fact, that flows so nicely into our third and last question. And that is, as social work students and alumni, we recognize the importance of creating alliances and partnerships to share resources that may be scarce for communities and individuals. Can you address how we can better build these alliances and partnerships? And are there any you see as vital for the future? So how about if we start with Megan this time and go the other way?
Yeah, I think we should be exhausting all of our resources, right? So, the school of thought that I typically try to move from is social justice, and for me, that looks like the liberation of all people, particularly under this idea that when Black people get free, we all get free. And I think really when we think about that principle, it's going to take everyone. It's going to take everyone in the movement. It's going to take everyone to use all of their resources for that to happen. And I think we absolutely should be building alliances and building relationships with folks who are willing to be accomplices and folks who are willing to pick up the torch for justice work. And that even in the pandemic, right? Like thinking about how we can exhaust all of our resources in the safest and best way possible to progress this idea of creating a life of well-being for all people.
Thank you. Marcus?
Yeah, agree 100%. Like local, local, local. It's got to be local. Like USC has like a huge name within Los Angeles, and it's like a huge brand, right? And like it's USC owns a lot of like property in Los Angeles as well. So how are we engaging with the people in our local communities that are doing the work to the benefit of the people in Los Angeles? Because USC as a school, um, it can be powerful if we choose to be. So what are we doing to be as local as possible? How are we engaging with like other local organizations that are trying to do things for the people who live here? Because it's one thing to talk about like the changes that we can make, and it's another thing to see the people who are actually like doing that exact same work around the corner from here. And they're just as valid, if not more. So that's got to be a collaboration that needs to happen.
Thank you. Really very good. Brittany?
So my experience is specific to working with forensically involved individuals, and more so Black males and females. So if I'm looking at different partnerships and alliances, I think it's important for us as a country and to work and build programs around supporting people with forensic history, because a lot of people are coming out of custody and there are limited amounts of resources and services available. So looking at that avenue is definitely something that's important if I have to be specific to what's necessary for our community.
Thank you. Karl?
Yes, for myself and looking at the resources as well for the community that I've, had the opportunity to work with and have clinicians working in the community. The most important like resources that I see that are needed are of course, the educational resources, housing resources, and employment resources. Those are like three of the major, especially with this pandemic that's been going on. We've done a lot of case management in helping with the educational, employment, and housing, helping with those type of resources.
Thank you. Really very nice. I agree that it's essential to be able to build these alliances and partnerships. As a matter of fact, Mr. Steve Phillips just recently wrote a book called Brown is the New White that talks about the collective voting power of communities of color. So talking about African Americans, talking about the Latino community, talking about the Asian community, and how with these types of communities collaborating and looking at the political strength that they are able to manifest because of collaborating and because of coming together cohesively, we really wield tremendous power in our society. So that's exactly what you're referring to when you talk about being able to look at what's going on in the local community and how you can work cooperatively, collaboratively with these other groups in order to achieve things that maybe we wouldn't be able to do singularly. So I would really just want to encourage people to, again, because this is our skill set as social workers, but to underscore the importance that Mr. Steve Phillips talks about our political power and strength that we are able to wield as unified communities. So thank you so very much for your participation. I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Decker to respond to any questions that have come from our audience, and then we will reconvene towards the end to close out our session this evening.
Absolutely. So we did get a few questions in from our audience. The first one is, what is your opinion of President Biden signing into law protecting the Asian and Native community against racism and racial violence, yet no order, law, policy protecting the Black community?
I can go first. My sister Megan mentioned earlier that what it takes for all of us to be free is for Black people to be free, and I think to be quite frank, I think our country is scared of that and addressing that, and so. I mean, on the surface, it sounds nice that you'll have individuals preach or give speeches about how they support our community, but then when it's time to actually do the work, it doesn't happen. So it's very unfortunate, but we just have to continue to press against the system and encourage the people that we work with and support in our families to do the same thing and not give up.
Now, just to piggyback off of that, it forces me to question just what does that protection look like, right? Does that then result in the over policing of the Black community? Does that then result in more police officers, dispatched in our communities? And we know, just on the grounds of research, one of the main concerns is just the police presence in our community is what results in Black death. So just thinking about those things and how we can interrogate just what does that protection look like, and why hasn't there been an issue to protect Black folks?
Yeah, like the proximity to whiteness thing is always going to be a thing. Like it's always going to be about power, proximity to whiteness. So it always feels like white supremacy is always going to protect white supremacy and like proximity to whiteness. So like, yes, it's a good thing that there are certain protections that are going out for people, because racism is terrible regardless of who it's happening to. But like, it definitely happens to us more. Like, who are we kidding? So yeah.
Yeah, and I definitely agree with Ms. Megan in saying that, we need to take a look at the policy itself that was signed, into law and see if it's something that even would benefit us as African Americans. Like, is it something that we would even want, or do we need to go to the table and come up with our own policy? Like, do we need to present our own policy different from the one that was signed into law,
Thank you. The next question that we got in asks, as Black social workers, how do we help our Black clients, especially Black males, address and navigate racial trauma?
My first thought is to not shy away from it. I feel like one thing that I've been thinking a lot with, especially like with my internship this year, is how identity like affects everything that we do and our experience, and like what identities are super prevalent for me, what identities are super prevalent for the people I'm talking to, right? So like my identity is going to dictate the way I see the world and blah blah blah. So knowing that like racism is always going to be a thing in my lifetime, it might be a thing in the person I'm talking to's lifetime as well. So don't be afraid to like talk about that, because like it's a thing. And I feel like that's one thing I'm not saying like my peers within like the School of Social Work, but like even like at my internship and like around, like especially like non-Black people, they're afraid to talk about that part when it comes to like supporting people. And it's like, you don't shy away from that. And if you don't have the words to talk about that, you know what? You don't have the words to talk about it. Let that person talk about it. But yeah, we can't be afraid to talk about it, because it affects me as well. So yeah.
I definitely agree with Marcus. Like you have to talk about it. You can't shy away from it. But the one strength that I utilized when I was doing therapy is, you have to meet the client where they are, and you have to provide a safe and an open environment for them to express their thoughts and feelings. And I think that, you know, there's a stereotype around therapy itself. So you have to um, help the client feel comfortable in being able to participate in the therapeutic services and be able to openly and comfortably express their thoughts and feelings about and the topic of racism, and that they can come in and feel like they're going to be helped, and you're going to help them, and you're going to listen to them, and you're going to be there and provide them with support.
To piggyback off what Karl mentioned, there is a huge stigmatization of mental health, especially within the Black community. So working to break those barriers, and then generational trauma is real. And we have to be more open to teaching our Black males about how that exists. And it does carry upon, it carries within our households, our friends, our other family members, and we want to break that system down. But also have open and honest conversations about our feelings, our emotions, and be emotionally intelligent, and mimicking and modeling and demonstrating that, and continuing to do it even when it feels as though we're doing it by ourselves, but setting spaces for where our Black males are able to display their emotions and make it authentic, and know that taking care of yourself is not just about your body, but also about your mind and your psyche.
Alrighty, so the next question we got from our audience, she asked, thank you all for sharing your perspective and ideas. I would love to know, what are some of the podcasts, YouTube channels, or blogs centering conversations around the Black community that you enjoy following currently?
Well, one of the Instagram pages that I was just looking at, and I'm actually trying to get featured on, is called Black Women PhDs, because I'm currently getting my doctorate right now at USC as well, in educational psychology. So that's a great platform to acknowledge Black women who are future and current doctors. I know they also have Black male PhDs. That's another Instagram page to follow. And then just the groups, the Black groups within the MSW program that exist, and also Sister Circle, that's on Instagram. So it's a couple of different nuances that exist for us Black folks. Yeah.
One that's coming to mind is one that I actually helped to produce. So Black Lives Matter Los Angeles, the local chapter here in LA, it currently has what's called This Is Not a Drill. And it's basically an online political education platform where we talk about all things concerning Black folks. And it was kind of birthed out of the pandemic and COVID-19, and just recognizing that there wasn't really a lot of conversation around resources and just what was happening, in our community as a result of COVID-19. And we've had it consistently. It airs every Thursday at 7 p.m. We've had various conversations about the election, economic sources, medical aid, all kinds of things that, concern Black folks. And so if you're interested, definitely get tapped in. It's facebook.com/BLMLA every Thursday at 7 p.m. PT.
Speaking of podcasts, I have a podcast. We are called Implicitly Awkward. It's myself and a friend of mine who's also in the MSW program. She's also a Sky student. But we are trying to make conversations about racism, equity, and all the above just less awkward and less taboo. So we're just trying to force that conversation. So if we can just talk about it amongst ourselves, maybe we can empower each other to just like talk about it with our families and the people in our lives, and it won't be so scary to say, like come Thanksgiving when we have that one problematic family member who says that thing every single time, you know? So Implicitly Awkward, we're on Twitter, Instagram. You can follow us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts.
Great, everyone. Thank you so much for sharing. Did anybody, Karl, I saw your mic come on. Did you want to add anything?
No, I'm not a social media person a lot, but I do follow Colin Kaepernick's like Know Your Rights. I follow him through I've been following him for a while because we're fraternity brothers, but I also just follow his commitment to the community. And so I kind of just follow like what's going on in communities across the country that he's involved with. So I just, follow that real close.
Thank you, Karl. So the last question that we got from our audience is, in your opinion, what is the common misconception or errors that allies, non-Black social workers make despite their heart wanting to be in a good place?
The first thing that comes to mind is just being too comfortable. And just like, yeah, and I since I've worked with so many Black people and I've had Black clients, I know exactly what Black people need. And it's like, while I know that like your heart is in the right place, like sometimes you can't be the mouthpiece for that idea. Sometimes it has to come from somebody else. And like, I don't know, like even like thinking about like uh any type of privilege, right? There's certain things that like say Megan can say to someone that I can't say as a man because of my identity and how it comes off as a man when I say these things, right? Whether I feel like I'm doing it because of like, there's a reason, what I'm saying? I'm trying to like get something good to happen or like an idea to happen. Like sometimes you can't be the mouthpiece. Sometimes you have to let somebody else do that. And I feel like we do that within so many identities, and we have to just be very careful and mindful about like how we ourselves are in this situation, how we find ourselves in this situation, but then like also how we're going to be perceived while we're in this situation.
And just to piggyback off of that, I think just honing in on this idea that knowing that even if you have knowledge, you don't know everything. So we have all these degrees and we are, subject matter experts and whatever have you, but recognizing that there's so much more to learn. There's always a missing piece. There's always some kind of context that can be learned. And the wisest person knows that they know nothing at all, right? So coming to the space willing and ready to learn, I think this is not really unique to allies, but just everyone recognizing that, when you come into a space, it's important to be willing and ready to learn and be a student in that space, even if you have the degrees or if you have the background knowledge.
And to piggyback off what Megan is saying, Black people, we come in so many different flavors. One person's experience is not the next person's experience. And for our allies to identify that and be aware of that. And just like Marcus was saying, that one individual is not speaking for the entire Black community. And you cannot use that their experience as a justification for all Black people, and to be mindful of that and identify your own privilege and tap into that and say, and not only identify it, but verbalize it as well and make it known, and maybe even use that as a benefit to support Black people.
Yeah, I agree with everyone on the panel, and this just saying as a social worker, when you get into this field, it's like you learn to be a different type of social worker for different types of clients. Like you have to adjust, like Brittany said, everybody, Black people, we come in different type of flavors. So you may walk into a household and have to deal with this issue. Then you put on your different social worker hat and you deal with this issue in another household. So as social workers, you're going to have to learn to adapt to each situation that you're dealing with in clients, and not only the African American community, but all communities. Like that's one of the things that's real important in this field, like being able to adjust and adapt to the situations that you're dealing with your clients.
We did get one more question. So the last question from the audience tonight is, this is from Cindy. She's the chair of the Nevada chapter of the NASW Racial Equity Task Force, and we are putting together our tasks. What do you see as one of the #1 area we as social workers should target first?
I have two. The first one being reparations for Black folks, and then the second one being the decoupling of law enforcement with social workers. I think that's a very, very important conversation that we should be having in this particular field. So those are my only two tasks that I think, social workers should be looking forward to.
Anybody else want to add any tasks?
Thinking about advocacy, like what does advocacy look like for me in comparison to what advocacy may look like for somebody else? So like if you're saying you're going to be an advocate for somebody, what does it look like, and how well do you know the people that you're saying you're speaking up for before like we actually go out and say what we need or they need? Because I feel like advocacy is how policy gets put into place. And I like, as many policies are going to get put into place in my lifetime, I just want them to be like the right ones for the people who need them the most.
And also being specific to Nevada, what are the racial and systematic issues that exist within that state, and then breaking those things down. And that could be an easier way to identify the various tasks.
Great, thank you so much. Dr. Wiley, I'll turn it back over to you to close us out with the panel.
Okay. Well, thank you all. Thank you for your knowledge, your expertise, and your passion. It's very evident that you care about the work that you do in the communities that you serve. Over the past year, it's been a very daunting experience dealing with the number of things that we've had to deal with regarding the COVID or regarding racial violence and chaos in our society. And yet this year, 2020, we've had some glimmers of hope in terms of looking at the vaccine, looking at an administration that supports progressive issues as it relates to a number of the communities that we've been talking about, especially the African-American community. And being here with you this evening brings another glimmer of hope, because you all have been inspirational in your comments, in your mindset about how we as professional social workers need to look at our community, need to look at other communities and how we can best serve them. And your skills are a testament that we will continue to serve communities very well. So I appreciate all of your input this evening, and I'd like to give you an opportunity to close with one comment from each one of you. So starting with you, Brittany.
I just really appreciate this opportunity to share with you all, and even just listen to my other fellow panelists about the different questions and perspectives that they have. I would offer, if anyone would like to contact me, I'll put my email address in the chat. Feel free to reach out to me for anything, any feedback, job opportunities, anything that works for you guys. So thank you.
Karl?
Definitely, I want to piggyback on that. I really appreciate the opportunity to be on this panel today. It was very insightful. Great hearing a lot of different perspectives on social work, and that's what it's all about. And I just want to say that going into the social work field has, really been an enriching thing for me, and it's enlightened me to a lot. I really benefited greatly from being in the program and being a social worker. And also I've, benefited from loving to help other people. Like I get a lot of satisfaction out of helping others. And that's what it's all about, being altruistic to others, and just to see the satisfaction that I can bring to other people. This profession has really given me the opportunity to be able to do that, and I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Marcus. And then Megan.
Yeah, I want to echo everybody else. Yeah, appreciate the opportunity to be on the panel with you all. And I feel like the one thing, if I could leave y'all with anything, is like, social work is about like the greater good, and like, giving of yourself for other people. And at the same time, I refuse to be a martyr for anybody, and you all should also refuse to be a martyr for anybody. So make sure people pay you for your work and your labor and your intellectual labor and your emotional labor too, because if given the opportunity, they won't. And I don't got time for it. We all got bills to pay. So.
And thank you, Marcus. And Megan.
Yeah, I just want to say thank you to all those who helped to put this panel on, and thank you for the opportunity to be able to speak with you all. I will definitely share my information below, and I'm looking forward to staying connected with my co-panelists and all those who reach out. And then the last thing I have is of my favorite quote from Angela Davis, which is, "You have to act as if it were possible to radically transform the world, and you have to do it all the time." So definitely want to encourage folks to always act.
Thank you so much, Megan. And I'd like to finally thank the USC School, Suzanne Dworak-Peck School of Social Work, for hosting this event tonight and allowing the multitude of voices that we've heard addressing the concerns of the future for African Americans, and also having this event coincide with Black History Month. Thank you all so very much for your participation.
I would just like to close it out and say one last thing. Again, thank you so much. Thank you, Dr. Wiley. Thank you, Karl, Marcus, Megan, and Brittany for joining us tonight. I do want, this is a part of our Black History Month series of events. We have two more events. Well, we have more than two more events, but the next two events, we have one tomorrow with our conversations. We're continuing our conversations with Dr. Renee Smith-Maddox, and tomorrow she will be having a conversation with Dr. Karen Lincoln. And next week, we have the honor to be hosting Congressmember Karen Bass, who is an alum of the School of Social Work. So I've put the links to the registration for those two events. I highly encourage you to attend if you have the time. The other plug I'm going to make for our alumni and our students here and prospective students, community members on the call here tonight, join our alumni and student networking platform. If you're not on Dworak-Peck Connect, please join it. You can message, you can connect with each other. I call it the LinkedIn for social workers and nurses. So I highly encourage, if you're not on the platform, please check it out. I'll put it in my email in the link below, as well in the chat box, in case you have any questions about me and how we can help serve you, our alumni community. And thanks to Ron also for joining us tonight, and Monica, as always, for helping put on a fabulous event. So as always, guys, as we close out the night from our Trojan family, I hope that everyone continues to fight on. Good night, everyone.
Before we close, before everyone exit, we just wanted to plug the USC Black Social Work Caucus is currently fundraising for the Black Student Scholarship. We have an initiative where we are hoping to build and develop a new scholarship for Black students who are hoping to become social workers in the School of Social Work. So be sure to tap in, follow us on Instagram at USC Black Social BSWC, right?
Yeah,
right?
USC __ BSWC. Yeah. All the information is there. Yeah.
All righty, everyone. Check it out on Instagram, USC _BSWC, and fight on.